Welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. This is a virtual side event that is part of the UN High Level Political Forum, and we're delighted to have you here with us today. The event is hosted by Solar Cookers International and it is called Solar Cooking: Inclusive, Evidence-Driven Solutions for Sustainable Development. And we know there's a lot of events happening during HLPF, so we really appreciate your time and your interest in solar cooking and learning more about how it's a practical, cross-cutting solution that advances health, gender equality, climate goals, and more. So we're looking forward to sharing our experiences and hearing from some pretty impressive and insightful speakers today. Just a few quick housekeeping items before we get started. Today's presentation will be recorded and it will be shared on the SCI website and on YouTube. And we encourage you to share the link with anyone you think is interested or who could not be here today. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, we invite you to type them into the question and answers tab. It is easier for us to see them in the Q&A tab than the chat function, so please use that one. And we will try to answer questions as we go and address a few at the end, but it will depend a little on time. And some of our guest speakers are joining us live today, so if you have any questions about their work, it's a really great opportunity for you to hear directly from them. We are always trying to make our presentations more accessible, so thank you very much for responding to the language question on the registration survey. We will not be providing live French translation today, but we hope to do that in the future. And once the video has been uploaded to YouTube, you will be able to access more language options. If English captions would be helpful, you can turn those on by selecting the Show Captions button at the bottom of your screen. And if you don't see this, then select More and then Captions. Just a quick note, they are automatically generated, so they might not be perfect. So today you'll be hearing from several members of the SCI team, including myself. I am Sarah Rosen, the Program and Operations Manager. You'll also hear from Keith Wingert, Strategic Partnerships Manager, Stefan Velat, Program Officer, Alan Bigelow, Program and Science Director, and Caitlin Hughes, SCI's Executive Director. And we are thrilled to welcome some really outstanding guest speakers. You're going to hear from Michael Melin, Head of People-Centered Programs at Sustainable Energy for All, Elvis Achiri, Co-Founder and President of Global Youth Strategy on Air Pollution, Elena Castrillo and Dr. Udone Kundo joining us on behalf of the Vocational and Education Training to Stop Deforestation Initiative. We are so glad to have all of you here today to share your expertise and perspectives with us today. So today we're going to explore the many benefits of solar cooking and look at some of the practical ways that projects are taking root around the world. But before we dive in, it's important to ground ourselves in the reality that we're trying to change, to clearly understand the situation that solar cooking seeks to address. So imagine you're starting your day by making breakfast over an open fire. You've done it before, you do it every day, and as you cook, smoke fills the air, you cough, your eyes water, breathing has become harder lately. The firewood that you're using took hours to collect yesterday, and maybe you were alone, risking injury or violence. Maybe wood is scarce, forcing you to walk long distances, or maybe it's so scarce that you need to buy charcoal instead, but charcoal is expensive, and the only money you have is the money you set aside for food. So some version of this scenario is the reality for 2.1 billion people around the world, about a quarter of the world's population, who still cook using polluting fuels like wood, charcoal, kerosene, and animal dung. This problem exists all over the world on every continent apart from Antarctica, but is most severe in Africa, where 4 out of 5 people lack access to clean cooking fuel. So does this matter? Cooking this way means breathing toxic smoke every day. And women, who are most often responsible for cooking, bear the brunt of the harm caused by household air pollution. And because women are also typically the primary caregivers, children who are helping or playing or sleeping nearby also suffer. According to the World Health Organization, 3.2 million people die each year from household air pollution, primarily caused by cooking over open fires. This includes 237 children under the age of 5. That's more than other major killers like tuberculosis and HIV, and it is the equivalent of losing an entire population of a large city every year simply because people need to prepare food. And beyond the individual home, cooking with polluting fuels harms the community and the planet because it contributes to harmful greenhouse gas emissions, deforestation, and biodiversity loss. The use of polluting fuels is responsible for approximately 2% of global greenhouse gas emissions, which is roughly the same as the aviation industry, according to the Clean Cooking Alliance and the International Energy Agency. It also releases black carbon, a short-lived climate pollutant which accelerates glacial melt and impacts local ecosystems. The good news is that solutions already exist. So there are many clean cooking technologies, and at SCI, we focused on the cleanest of all, solar cooking. So a solar cooker is an appliance that collects and absorbs sunlight, retaining heat to cook food and pasteurize water without fuel, smoke, or emissions. So who is Solar Cookers International, and what role do we play? SCI is a nonprofit organization working to improve human health, economic well-being, women's empowerment, and the environment by promoting climate-friendly solar cooking solutions for vulnerable communities around the world. And since 1987, SCI has been leading and convening the solar cooking sector, building a strong collaborative network that now spans over 135 countries. How do we work to achieve our mission? How do we try to reach those 2.1 billion people? We have 3 main mechanisms which underpin and reinforce each other, which are advocacy, research, and capacity building. So through these tools, SCI supports the global cooking community while also creating the enabling environments needed to mainstream solar cooking and scale up projects so that they can reach many more people. Later on, we're going to take a closer look at the different types of solar cookers and specific benefits they offer. But first, to help us further set the scene and understand the global landscape, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Alan Bigelow, who will share how solar cooking connects to sustainable development and how SCI advocates to ensure solar cooking is included in national and international policies and climate plans. Alan?
Thank you so much, Sarah. And hello to everybody who is here today. Thank you for being here. And also thank you for your interest in what you're doing to help advance this movement. So in advocacy, I'd like to just give an overview of what SCI is doing in this area of our work. So Sarah, if you could go to the next slide, please. We'd like to showcase how solar cooking actually has an extremely broad benefit, and that it is supportive of all 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And that might be a surprise if you're hearing this for the first time. Indeed, it's a tall claim. And one might initially think that, okay, the energy goal is the most obvious. Um, there are connections with all of these, and so I just wanted to highlight a few that are being spotlighted right now at the high-level political forum. So SDG 3 on good health and well-being. The obvious there is what Sarah was talking about a moment ago, and that's the health impacts from exposure to household air pollution, and that is a #1 cause of disease. Another associated risk is burns, but solar cookers do not have flames, so there's a health benefit right there. Also being spotlighted is SDG 5 on gender equality. So since mostly women and children are taking care of the cooking tasks, including seeking firewood, sometimes scavenging for it, the solar cooker can reduce the risks of that practice, which can include de-risking gender-based violence. Also, saving time, about 5 hours a day for some communities. And that amount of time that is spent typically for collecting firewood could be changed for education, vocational activities, and also for leadership roles. SDG 8, decent work and economic growth. So we know from our data that we collect from our programs that cooking with free solar energy reduces household fuel costs. So those fuel costs are reduced, and this helps break the cycle of poverty. SDG 14, life below water, is also being highlighted. And with solar cooking, you can curb deforestation, and that allows the trees to absorb more water, reduce the runoff of pollutants into the oceans, and also helps sequester more carbon and reduces the burden on the oceans for sequestering carbon. Lastly, and every year, the high-level political forum spotlights SDG number 17 on partnerships for the goals. So here we'd like to connect with solar cooking that women and who are participating primarily in the cooking activities, if they can save time through solar cooking, this can steer women more toward becoming change agents. So they are involved in activities and actions towards all of the goals. Um, and furthermore, we need to have trusted partnerships for advancing this global solar cooking movement. So this is an important connectivity that we like to make at Solar Cookers International, is on the SDGs. Okay, next slide, please, Sarah. I'd like to talk about some of our examples, some examples of SCI's advocacy. Uh, Through the calendar year, we'll participate at the Commission on the Status of Women, CSW, held in the spring, and also the high-level political forum, as we're doing right now. And then another big one is the UNFCCC, Climate Change Conference of Parties, also known as COP. And last year, COP 29 was held in Baku, of Azerbaijan, and upcoming we have COP 30 in Belém, Brazil. We also participate in regional and thematic conferences. This gives us a chance to really teach, learn, and network. So the teaching is really SCI's voices, sharing voices from the sector as well, to let policymakers, decision makers, and members of civil society know about this solution so that they can participate in moving solar cooking movement forward. We also learn. For instance, last year at an SDG 7 action forum on energy, we learned about a UN energy policy brief that was a roadmap for just and inclusive clean cooking transition. And it was very clear in this policy brief that solar cooking, as an example of renewable energy-based cooking, has to be included in order to reach the goals for net zero emissions from cooking by 2050. That might sound like a long time from now, but to actually hit net zero for the entire planet, that's a tall order. So we need to be working together, and it was wonderful to see that solar cooking was included in that policy brief. Now, the picture that you see here is from the World Health Organization's second global conference on air pollution and health. And this was showcasing the co-benefits of health, climate, gender, and equity for reductions of air pollution. And SCI was thrilled to participate and deliver commitments from our side that would help towards a 50% reduction in the health impacts of air pollution by 2040. So that's a big part of our action here is to improve the air quality indoors, but also outdoors. Okay, on the next slide, please. Just wanted to highlight why this year is important. And so we're having right now the high-level political forum. This is taking place for this week and part of next week. And we have voluntary national reviews, VNRs from 37 countries, where they're essentially giving reports about how well they're doing toward meeting the Sustainable Development Goals. Certain SDGs are having in-depth review. But overall, we hear again and again that the progress on universal access to clean cooking is remaining off track. So we have a general call to step it up and move faster. This year in Brazil, there will be COP30, and it's an important year because countries are updating their nationally determined contributions this year. So this is happening right now. It's an important year, and we're looking forward to reviewing those NDCs to see where opportunities may land for solar cooking. Next slide, please. So just to get a look at what that was from last year, this is an activity that SCI takes on every year. That in the NDCs that are available, we had a certain number of countries that were acknowledging cooking sector, so 77. And 51 were favorable. They had language in their NDCs that were favorable to solar cooking. Now, that's important because when we have policy documents that are favorable to solar cooking, this can open up opportunities for programs, for funding for those programs, et cetera. So we're very excited to take this approach, and we will keep going and have another NDC report for the upcoming year. Okay, next slide, please. Advocacy is not only for governments, but it's also for local non-government organizations. It's really across the board. And to have a coordinated effort towards clean cooking, truly clean cooking that includes solar as an option, we have to work from the government side on down to the grassroots side. So on the government side, we're looking for policy alignment and the capacity to address these issues at scale in a coordinated approach. But with the local organizations where things will actually happen and work gets done, and often it's governments will involve the local organizations to actually do the work. So we look at meeting local organizations at these events that we go to. Over time, we build trust. And we leverage experience in the communities. This is extremely important to take the leadership from the communities who have expertise in their regions to really find out the best tactics that will work for introducing solar cooking and expanding it in those areas. So overall, with these best practices, we're building capacity for long-term success. Next slide, please. So the one way we can graphically show how this works is that we are training entities and individuals. Often we meet people at events and they've never heard of solar cooking. And so they might come in at the bottom level of this pyramid where they are unaware. And through interactions, we increase their level of awareness, we strengthen partnerships, to the point where these entities and individuals become receptive and interested in solar cooking, and then supportive, and then active advocates for solar cooking. Ultimately, we want to be working in close partnership with in opportunities with institutional funding and with data-driven impact evaluation and a roadmap for scaling. So this is a quick overview of SCI's advocacy work, and we're really thrilled to be involved in this and to have a stellar team to be involved in it as well. Okay, so that wraps it up for advocacy, and I'd like to now switch gears to introduce our next speaker. So Mikhail Melin is at the organization Sustainable Energy for All, C for All. He is the Director of Partnerships and Development. And so we're going to play a pre-recorded message from Mikhail. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, greetings from Sustainable Energy for All. Right now, as we sit in this room and I speak on this camera, 2.1 billion people will still cook their next meal over open fires or very basic stoves. For them, preparing food means risking their health, their safety, and their future. First of all, I would like to thank Solar Cookers International for hosting this critical session on one of the most overlooked energy challenges of today, and that's obviously clean cooking. Energy is not only a catalyst for progress, driving improvements in health, education, and economic opportunities too. Without access to affordable, reliable, and clean energy, billions of people are denied the opportunity to lead a dignified life on a healthy planet. It's time to recognize energy not just as a commodity, but as a human right, a fundamental enabler of modern life. At Sustainable Energy for All, we want to ramp up efforts to accelerate progress towards universal access to clean cooking by 2030. We work on filling the missing links within the sector to achieve SDG 7 and the broader climate and developmental goals. We address awareness gaps through advocacy and communications. We translate ambition into action by integrating clean cooking into energy planning, approaches and tools, and we support governments through capacity building efforts. We also work towards linking up with the other sustainable development goals. As an example, in partnership with the World Food Programme, we are accelerating the clean cooking transitions in schools across Africa, with the focus on shifting away from biomass-based cooking to electric cooking for preparing those school meals. Now, looking at the magnitude of the challenge and focusing on the ones that are at risk of being left behind, we need to deploy all available clean cooking technologies and modern fuels for cooking. And here, obviously, solar cookers offer a promising solution. By harnessing abundant sunlight, solar cookers can save households several hours each day, typically spent collecting firewood, alleviating time poverty, and reducing exposure to health risk, but also gender-based violence. At SC for All, we look forward to collaborating with you to accelerate the deployment and adoption of solar cookers. We also want to harness the role of women as energy users, community leaders, and entrepreneurs. Our programs with partners include the Women in Clean Cooking Mentorship Program and our STEM traineeship program for recent graduates, which is set to provide women and youth with professional development opportunities and essential skills in the clean cooking sector. We want to ensure that women and youth are at the heart of the energy transition, and therefore this is an area where we look to partner up with you too. As I conclude, and as the clock ticks fast forward towards 2030, now really is the time to raise ambition and scale actions across all fronts. The question isn't whether we can solve this challenge. We know we can. The solutions are already available on the shelf. The question is whether we will act with the urgency that the 1.2 billion people need. The question isn't whether we can solve this challenge. We know we can, because the solutions are already available on the shelf. The question is whether we will act with the urgency that 2.1 billion people deserve. Together, we can go faster and further and translate the 2.1 billion people challenge into an opportunity of action that ensures that sustainable energy, including clean cooking, is accessible for all. Let's make sure the answer here is yes. Thank you very much. Look forward to our continued collaboration.
I'd like to thank Mikhail for his message and to be promoting all forms of clean cooking. This is essential to meet the goals that we have as set forth. And next up, I would like to just tell you a little bit about Elvis, but in introducing Elvis Dicumaciri, who is the co-founder and president of Global Youth Strategy on Air Pollution and Climate Health. I met Elvis at the World Health Organization's conference in Cartagena, Colombia last spring. And I just wanted to highlight that the work that SCI does is important to share information on solar cooking with advocates for clean air like Elvis. And that's why it's important that we go to events like the WHO conference on air pollution and why we put on educational events like this. So Elvis, he didn't know about solar cooking previously, and we had a wonderful conversation and connection, and he is excited to learn more. So we're going to hear a bit about Elvis and his expertise, and conversely, he'll be learning about solar cooking as we go further. Okay, over to you, Elvis. If you can turn on your camera and microphone, I give you the floor. Thank you.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be speaking here today and having the opportunity to meet Alan in Cartagena in March. So it's true, the Solar Caucus International High Level Political Forum site event, sharing experiences from Cameroon is very interesting. What we have been doing with the Freedom to Breathe campaign that we got involved with the Global Action Plan UK in 2022, which has been a springboard for us creating the Global Youth Strategy on Air Pollution and Climate Health, where it's a space where young people can share their voices on how to understand the clean energy space and what is needed as action. So it is very important that young people are able to understand that there are solutions which are cost effective and available for public, not only in the global north and also, but also in the global south, where we have this free sun that is burning the planet every day. Thank you very much. Slide. Yeah, so I'm just going to look at the burden of air pollution. Last year, we saw how air pollution became the #1 risk factor or #2 in terms of when we talk about #1, I'll actually put it in terms of environmental risk factor and being the second risk factor for mortality. This State of the Air Global Report really calls attention to if we are burning biomass fuels at home and firewood use or the use of firewood. Where I come from, I'm going to speak with the context where I'm coming from in a low and middle income country like Cameroon, where the use of firewood is still about 75% to 95% use in the country. And this is a big issue, and solar cookers is something, it's an indispensable kind of solution that we need at the moment. And we need action. If we look at the data around mortality and the impact of air pollution on the health of people, especially children, I think there is a significant need for action to curb this. Slide. Yes, I'll come into evidence on the work that I've been doing in the past 10 years. I first learned about asthma in 2015 during a World Conference on Tobacco Health. And I was just keen to understand why nobody was speaking about asthma, this disability that doesn't have a cure. And I read this in the 2014 report. And since then, I started working and I was made principal investigator. And one thing which is clear is that 1 in 10 children have asthma symptoms, and half of these have inadequate control symptoms, and many have no access to essential asthma medicines. And this is what I noticed when I conducted this first ever global study on the prevalence of asthma amongst children, adolescents, and adults using passive consent in 49 schools. This is a self-reported survey that air pollution is one of the risk factor, and you know asthma is very complex, and you have like 20 variables living from genetical, physiological, psychological, and environmental risk factor. And air pollution was one of the things that we noticed to be occurring, be it from the burning of firewood and the children staying in the home when they burn, and also the use of the children being exposed through high level traffic roads from dust. And this is something that in our study, from this study, we noticed the prevalence of asthma was 1.8% amongst children 6-7 years and 5.3% amongst adolescent 13-14 years, and it dropped in adults and 3.0%. And the question was, why was the prevalence high amongst children 13-14? There were several factors, but one of the key things we noticed was that air pollution, which we could not measure but could actually see significantly in the responses of the participant, was a big contributor, because the children at the age of 6, 7, most of their asthma was genetic. And why was this increase in 13, 14 is because of exposure. And if we can provide solutions to curb the burden of air pollution on children at a very young age, it will be a problem. And that is why at the Global Youth Strategy, we use vulnerable population like children with asthma to speak their stories and let people know that there is urgent need to switch from dirty fuels to clean cooking fuels like the solar cookers. Slide. Yes, I'm just coming the context of Cameroon. Where are the sources of pollution? We have in the first slide, you can see the burning of firewood or sawdust or any of its forms is something which is very important in terms of contributing to pollution. And we know indoor pollution, this just to give you a context, we still have waste burning, where sometimes in villages, they even use some of this waste to cook. So in the cities, this will just be burning, doing away with the waste, but in rural areas, you actually use residues for cooking. So this is something that people don't know. That's why I share this. And we feel that also pollution from secondhand vehicles might be a problem, but indoor pollution is very critical still. There are actions, but there is need to make this to be popular, if I may say, because we have still a problem of what is available is not yet affordable for most of the population. And this is just to show you the impact of how severe air pollution is still in the country, with Cameroon being one of the most polluted countries in terms of particulate matter, PM 2.5. Slide, please. Yes, I'm bringing this slide where you might already know 1.1 billion, over 1 billion children are still exposed to the use of fossil fuels. And where Cameroon is situated, you actually see the countries in red in the area in Africa. Where there is red, you see most of the countries in Africa, and yellow, you still see many of the countries in Africa where we still depend on biomass solid fuels. And the need for solar cookers is even urgent. It's an urgent problem. As Alan said, it's true. I'm not only using solar cookers at the moment because they are not available, but in my advocacy and campaigns I do from the study that I did on asthma, we promote all forms of clean energy, and what is available at the cost that the population can get is what we are encouraging. People need to use the most cleanest. We encourage families to use the most cleanest source of energy, and sometimes the cost is always the problem. And if we can have solar cookers at really affordable prices, this is something that will be reducing the burden of mortality from biomass fuel. Slide, please. Yes. Why clean air indoors and even outdoors? Clean air is very important for us to stay happy and healthy. And this is something which is known in cleaner air means that our lungs, our hearts, and our brains can function better. But unfortunately, indoor air pollution, indoor is still polluted. Why? Because in the context where I come from, pollution is happening indoors and also from outdoors, contributing to worsening the case of pollution indoors. And the burden is really high for those who are suffering with respiratory and cardiovascular conditions. Slides, please. Yes, and health professionals have a key role to play in like really communicating these messages, be it in the office, in the clinic, or hospitals. Disease control, especially for asthma, heart failure, is still very needed. Reducing exposure, like air quality monitoring, like what we are beginning with IQ Air in Cameroon. Personal protection, masks is something, and air purifiers. These are all new technologies where people need to measure the impact of how biomass fuel is affecting them. Slide, please. Yes, and I'm just going to show some of the fuels that are being used at the moment in the context of Cameroon. Most common, we have the liquefied petroleum gas and the gas plates, which we use, even some electric cookers, which are available, but because of electricity, which is not stable, these are not still very common. Slide. Yes, one thing which is still, we use common sources in Cameroon is LPG, liquefied petroleum. It's not the cleanest, but it's the most available for the moment. And we encourage people not to stop use this, but understand that there is need to use clean energy, and solar cookers will be something that will be very important for the Cameroon context and Africa in particular. Slide, please. Yes, please go on. Yes, so I'm just presenting this context of how there is failure in the Cameroon. The Cameroon set up its liquefied petroleum gas plant in 2016, which the objective was to have households currently at 12% to move to switch to 58%. So this was targeting liquefied petroleum gas, but when we did calculations in terms of reducing mortality between 2019 and between 2016 and 2019, we see the difference of only 3,000, which is very small. And this is to say that the liquefied petroleum gas plant, where we are in 2025, almost 10 years that this was put in place, is not the most sustainable solution. And that's why I'm still insisting that solar cookers will be a turning point for the context of really having the means to purchase this. If we have this at low cost, solar cookers might be a turning point, because the liquefied petroleum gas is not that cost effective. It's still a problem for most of the population, and why the need for solar cookers is very urgent. Please slide. Yes, and benefits, I'm just sharing benefits for switching to cleaner fuels and cooking stove is at the health level, reducing the burden, environmental level. This reduce deforestation and reduce community outdoor pollution. And climate change, it has a critical role to play in reducing climate pollutants, and also the gender issue that when we switch from burning of biomass fuels and to solar cookers, we are actually improving the lives of women and young girls who spend most of the time in the kitchen burning firewood. So these solutions are very urgent, not only at the level of improving health, but also the socioeconomic status of some kind of groups that are marginalized, like girls and women who cook in this context where we are, where they are always in the kitchen. So this is a problem which is in depth in terms of looking at it not only as a health problem, but a development issue where there is urgent need for action to vulgarize and make solar cookers to be available, because we have a problem of electricity. We are really working towards having electricity available, but this is taking some time for it to be stable. And solar cookers are like a solution which is very needed for these communities that depend on firewood for cooking. Slide, please. Yeah, what can we do to make sure we have clean air for climate health systems? And one thing is very important is advocacy. Please slide. Let's move on. Slide, please. Yeah, advocacy. Our work at the Global Youth Strategy is driven by advocacy in terms of using what is available to bring change. So if we have solar cookers, it's possible to use to push policymakers to take action, either incentivizing, reducing the cost for the population, because this is where the underlying issue is about the cost in low and middle income setting. The solar cookers, if they have an affordable price than LPG, then government will be able to accept this. And that's why advocacy is very important in using the health argument to make government take actions that can protect the health of people and reduce the cost on the burden of how they live and how they're spending their expenditures on these energy sources. Slide, please. Yeah, and one important thing we can do is to make sure that clean air, be it indoors and outdoor, is a human right. So this is one thing we have been promoting with the Freedom to Breathe campaign, which we really want clean air to be. Solar cooker should be like a human right for those that need it. So slide, please. Yeah, and one of the key aspects as a young advocate and researcher has been acknowledging the International Day of Clean Air for Blue Sky by the United Nations, which is something which is very important to push for action at individual level. Like, what are people taking? How are people acknowledging that air pollution is a problem and we need for example, solar cookers to be a solution. We train students in schools to understand this problem, and with my national organization, the Association for the Promotion of Youth Leadership, Advocacy, and Volunteerism, we organized the first ever Clean Air Days in Cameroon in collaboration with the Ministry of Public Health, where we were actually promoting switching from dirty fuels to cleaner fuels. And the government, the Ministry of Communication, has taken this seriously. And actually, this last month, the minister wrote a letter to my organization accepting that they will be raising awareness on media to make people understand the need for cleaner energy and the risks that air pollution has on people's health, and especially young people. Slides. Yeah, so these are some of the pictures from our Clean Air Day. The first one, this one was in 2022 when we organized the first ever Clean Air Day. And if you see, we offered switch trash cans and clean energy just to tell the students we are not only talking, but we need to take action immediately. And on the next year, we also still have this Clean Air Day event where the Minister of Communication sent his representative and Minister of Public Health, and we had the children, the students really being happy that the European Lung Foundation was able to support this activity, and happy and making them to understand that clean air is a problem, and as young people they should be taking action at the level of their families. Slide, please. Yeah, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child is something which is very important, and we pushed since 2022 with the Global Action Plan, and we now have clean air as a right for children. And solar cookers should be a solution that is not only an energy solution, but is coming to help children live a better life as they grow up. As most of the health issues we have, we breathe our first dirty air even before we are put to bed. And that is why at the Global Youth Strategy on Air Pollution and Climate Health, we are really making the underlying issue to make sure that companies that can invest in clean energy should understand that they are protecting the health of children around the world if we promote solar cookers to come to communities where children, they don't have a choice but to burn biomass for their daily hood. Slide, please. Yeah, thank you very much. We really think freedom to breathe is something for everybody. Everybody has the right to breathe clean air, and solar cookers are something that can really bridge the gap between this lack of energy sources that we need, especially in low and middle income countries. So thank you very much for your time, and I'm very happy to answer any questions if you have them, and feel free to contact me in my email or my WhatsApp if you have any questions as well. Thank you very much, Alan, for the invitation, and looking forward to continuing these discussions to and move on with this work in this critical area. Thank you.
Thank you, Elvis. That was tremendous. And I wish that we could be in a room together so you could hear a roaring applause from, from the audience. But thank you so much for your time today to join us virtually.
Yeah, I'm joining from London. Just to say, I'm joining from London, from the global, actually currently 2 days ago, we have been in the Global Climate and Health Summit where I was speaking and chairing a session on air pollution impact on vulnerable population in low and middle income countries. So we just ended the summit before I came here, and I'm happy to be joining you today. Thank you.
Thank you again, Elvis. You're a real champion, and for all your work doing, leading the youth, and this movement will definitely march together forward. Okay, so thanks again. And yes, if you have any questions for Elvis, if you could put them in the Q&A, that would be wonderful. All right, back to the solution, what we're talking about. So something that Elvis mentioned was the cost. So the cost for clean cooking solutions in Cameroon is challenged. It was something that we found over and over again from our data that we collect from our projects, is that solar cookers are affordable. They save money. In fact, the amount of money that is saved from buying less firewood and less charcoal can actually pay back the cost of the solar cooker, and then from there on, one can have savings. And actually make money that way and do stuff with it, like buy more food. Okay, so to talk about the solution, I just want to look at the next slide. Just some very common pictures of the basic types of solar cookers. You have here the reflective panel cooker, the box oven, and the parabolic reflector. And all of these devices collect and absorb direct sunlight, and then that energy of sunlight is transformed into heat energy that's retained for cooking food or pasteurizing water. This is an approach using solar thermal, and there are hundreds of variations of these devices. It's really a thrill to use these. I'm a solar cook, and many of us at SCI and beyond who are working in this space, we solar cook. And on a sunny day, we'll put out the solar cooker. And I have to say, from my perspective, I'm uh, just so happy every time to see that the sun energy that we all have it on this planet, can do this for us. It can cook our food. So just encourage you all to solar cook in your personal lives, but also in your professional lives to drive this sector forward. Next slide, please. These are three more types of solar cookers that are becoming more common: the evacuated tube, Fresnel lens, and Fresnel mirror. So there's a lot of creativity within this space of solar cookers. Now, the solar cooker is not necessarily geared for cooking all foods, so there needs to be some complementary cooking solutions. The heat retained basket is an excellent example of that, but there are also other types of clean cooking solutions that are great complements with solar cooking. Okay, next slide, please. If we want to go big and look at what happens for institutions like a school, this is a boarding school in Nepal. This is the Vajra Academy, and it has an institutional solar cooking system on the rooftop of the school, where sunlight is collected at these receiver points where water is heated to steam. Steam is then goes through plumbing into a kitchen downstairs that's very clean. You do not see soot on the walls. And delicious momos, a traditional Nepali food, is prepared in this example. And I can tell you, because I took those pictures, I ate that. It was delicious. Okay, next slide, please. So really coming back to the rationale for why solar cooking. We have a lot of points here and on the next slide. But before we look at the next slide, I just encourage you to look at this list of benefits and ask yourself, does this fit with improving human health, economic well-being, women's empowerment, and the environment for vulnerable populations worldwide? Now, that is the mission statement at SCI. Let's go ahead and look at the next slide. Just to wrap it up, and this is a solution that's really straightforward to implement. It doesn't require large infrastructure. It has quick implementation, especially if you have effective, trusted partners, and it's accessible. We like to call it the people solution. So I want to thank you again for getting through this far, but please stay tuned for there's more. I'd like to introduce you to our next speaker, who is a colleague. So, Keith Wingert, Strategic Partnerships Manager at SCI. Keith, please take the microphone and tell us about Central African Republic and Mali and what SCI is doing there. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Thank you to everyone for joining us today. Thank you to our guest speaker, Elvis, who's already spoken, and Mikhail from SC for All for the contribution on behalf of their organization, and to a couple other guest speakers that we have coming up. As Alan mentioned, my name is Keith Wingert. I'm the Strategic Partnerships Manager with Solar Cookers International. And I'm excited to share a little bit about our current programs in two countries where we're focusing on working with local partners in those countries to improve access to clean cooking using locally produced solar cooking equipment. I want to also thank Alan and our guest speakers for describing the challenge that we face to overcome this persistent reliance on wood and charcoal for cooking meals. I'm excited to share a little bit, for those of you that have been following Solar Cookers International, maybe you've already heard a little bit about these programs. We announced at the end of last year and had a few details that we shared during our event during the Commission on the Status of Women in March. We're excited to share a little bit more about some of the progress that we've been making. But before I talk about the specifics of our programs in the Central African Republic and Mali, I also wanted to show a similar map to one that Elvis had shared earlier. So next slide, please. So this is a very similar map, maybe a little bit slightly different in color, but this helps give us an idea of where this problem remains particularly challenging, or where the progress has stalled. As you can see here, we already have heard the number, or the statistic, 2.1 billion people around the world that lack access to clean cooking fuels and technologies. So this is the most recent data from 2022 that's available from the World Health Organization and also on the World Bank's website. And so the darker green countries are where you have universal or nearly universal access to clean cooking fuels and technologies. For example, North America and most of Europe, Australia, Saudi Arabia as well. But as you can see, there's clearly specific regions where this remains a significant challenge. As we've heard already, large portions of Africa have less than 25% access to clean cooking fuels and technologies. And South Asia and Southeast Asia as well are some other regions or hotspots where access to clean fuels and technologies remains a challenge. Fortunately, at Solar Cookers International, we see this also as an opportunity because these regions also tend to have readily available access to direct sunlight for many months or large portions of the year. So we look forward to finding partners to work with and allow for solar cooking to take root and help address this challenge of access to clean cooking. Two countries that I'll talk about now, Central African Republic and Mali, are both in the beige color, which means they're less than 25%. In the case of those two countries, Mali has less than 2% of its population that has access to clean cooking fuels and technologies. And in the Central African Republic, the number is approximately 1% of the population. So this is not only a continuing challenge, but one that affects nearly the entire population for these two countries. Next slide, please. We are thrilled to be partnering with the United Nations Climate Technology Center Network, or the CTCN, to implement these solar cooking pilot programs in both the Central African Republic and Mali. These programs are supported by the European Union, so we're very grateful to the support that the European Union has provided to make these programs possible. If you're not familiar with the CTCN facilitates the connection between countries and climate technology solutions, accelerating the development and transfer of technology for low carbon and climate resilient initiatives at the request of developing countries. That means these two countries, government representatives from these two countries, have identified access to clean cooking as a challenge and have asked for support from the CTCN and network members like Solar Cookers International to work together to find ways to make access to solar cooking in particular more likely or more available to populations in their specific countries. So we've been working together since last year on kind of preparing for these pilot programs. And we're really excited to share some of the updates on the progress that we've made thus far. Next slide, please. In the case of the Central African Republic, as I mentioned, it was requested by government authorities, and the Central African Republic has even put reference to solar cooking in their nationally determined contribution. Earlier in today's webinar, we heard a little bit about how Solar Cookers International reviews nationally determined contributions on an annual basis to look for language that is supportive of clean cooking programs and solar cooking programs as well. So we thank the government of the Central African Republic for specifically highlighting or targeting a goal of reaching 5% of households equipped with solar cookers in 2025. Unfortunately, with the pilot program relatively small in scale, that looks unlikely to be accomplished. However, we're hoping to work together to find a way, a pathway or a roadmap for potentially getting close to achieving that second goal, or 10% of the population equipped with solar cookers by 2030. So it's only 5 years away, but we're looking for a successful pilot that can help us chart a pathway forward to make solar cooking part of the Central African Republic's efforts to address clean cooking challenges in their country. Next slide, please. Some of the updates on that particular program. As I mentioned, these are relatively small pilot programs, but we're hoping with successful evidence of adoption rates and health benefits, gender benefits, and economic savings to scale these programs. We have already identified households that are interested in participating in the program and using solar cook stove equipment. There are 180 participating households across 4 pilot communities around the outskirts of Bangui, which is the capital of Central African Republic. Each of those households will receive one solar cooking device. There are 3 different designs that were reviewed and selected. Those devices were locally produced. There were prototypes that were initially trialed to ensure that they meet specifications and are able to cook food. And we're really excited to be working with youth representatives in Bangui as well. Some university students and young people working in local civil society organizations. And so we've participated in some training programs that we'll talk a little bit more about in a moment. And those youth representatives are heavily involved in data collection activities, part of the training program and community outreach, and also awareness campaign activities to introduce solar cooking to the target communities. Next slide. We also wanted to share a recent photo. This is from just last month. This was one of the 4 communities where solar cooking pilot solar cooking equipment has been distributed. These are the 3 different designs. Earlier, we talked about the variety of designs. In the center, you can see a parabolic design. On the right, there's a box oven design. And then on the left, there's a simple reflective panel cooker. All of these were built locally in the Central African Republic by our partners. And similar activities to introduce solar cooking, build awareness of the links between solar cooking and climate change, or solar cooking and gender, were part of the awareness campaign activities, along with introductions and demonstrations of the solar cooking equipment, weather permitting, of course, when sun was available. Next slide, please. I also mentioned that we're working in Mali as well. This photo is from one of the awareness campaign events that took place earlier this year. One of the critical roles of the project is to introduce solar cooking to community members where solar cooking was not already being used or is familiar or well known. This is intended to generate interest and prepare for successful usage, right? If people are aware of what solar cooking is and understand the benefits that you can get from using solar cooking equipment, then you're more likely to use those solar cook stoves successfully. And as I mentioned, similar to in the Central African Republic, training links cooking to some of the health issues that we heard about from Elvis, some of the gender issues that some of my other colleagues have talked about, and some of the climate impacts as well, in addition to environmental issues. The goal for both of these programs is to reduce the demand on wood and forest resources by increasing the amount of renewable solar energy that is used for cooking activities. Next slide, please. So some of the updates from the program in Mali. Last month, just in the last couple of weeks, there was a rollout of distribution of solar cooking equipment to 90 rural households. This is an area, part of the program in Mali is looking at some of the differences in rural areas with peri-urban areas. So there'll be an additional 45 households in a peri-urban region just outside of Bamako, the capital of Mali, that will be receiving solar cooking equipment within the next couple of weeks, by the end of July of 2025. Part of our task at Solar Cookers International is to work with our partners. We are a relatively small, internationally focused organization, so we depend on having strong, trusted partners to work together to implement these programs. As you can see here, this photo shows some of our colleagues introducing one of the box ovens to some of the target communities. And data collection is also critical. It allows us to understand what kind of interest and what kind of impact solar cooking is having, and gives us the opportunity to share the message to policymakers, practitioners, and potential funders or donors about the positive benefits that can be achieved through solar cooking adoption. And then part of what we're doing both in the Mali program and the Central African Republic program is working together with those government authorities, local community leaders, households, civil society partners, research partners, to develop a roadmap for how to scale solar cooking. Part of that means finding the right funding sources, finding the right opportunities to make solar cooking adoption sustainable domestically in each particular location. I'm excited to introduce my colleague, another staff member at Solar Cookers International, to talk a little bit more about the specific details of what it looks like when SCI partners with some of these local organizations. He'll walk us through some of the work that's gone into getting to this stage where we're actually having solar cooking equipment being used by these pilot communities. So it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Stefan Vilat, who will come open or turn on his camera and unmute himself. There we go. And we'll take over the presentation from here. Thanks, Stefan.
Thank you very much, Keith, and thank you to everyone for being with us today. And in fact, today I will try to cover with you some of the main tools that SCI uses on the field every time we're implementing a program. And today we'll cover with you the quick needs assessment, the training of the trainers, and also the adoption and impact survey. So we'll start with the quick needs assessment. And the goal for the quick needs assessment that we usually conduct at the start of every program is to identify community needs through a culturally adapted and participatory assessment process to inform targeted and equitable beneficiary selection. And the approach that we use every time is to try to build as much the capacity of our implementing partners on the ground. Next slide, please. So one of the first steps of a new solar cooking program for SCI is to conduct a quick needs assessment. However, to do so, SCI uses a structured survey model that is usually based on proven key elements. However, every time we do so, SCI understands that this model is not universally applicable. It's not a one-size-fits-all. So therefore, we do take the time to make sure that these surveys are adapted to the local realities. During the quick needs assessment that we usually conduct at the start of our programs, SCI ensures that local partners are fully involved in the process. The survey model is first shared with the partners, it is discussed, and it is adjusted in collaboration with the partners, which promotes the ownership of the process. Once the survey form is validated and those group sessions, SCI typically conducts a training session for the main implementing partners. And this approach aims to strengthen the capacity of the partners, especially for those who do not yet have that expertise. And the second phase of that quick need assessment, SCI usually supports the training of survey enumerators. Usually that training is conducted primarily by the implementing partners, however, with the technical support of SCI. Again, here, this strategy encourages the skill transfer through active learning and also the typical application of a newly acquired knowledge. Once those surveys are completed, the data are usually collected using the Kobo Toolbox platform. However, we do understand that this tool can be sometimes difficult to of use for some partners. So therefore, we use as much as possible. We try to simplify those tools and use as much as possible simple tools like Excel spreadsheets. This allows partners to develop analytical autonomy and also the ability to replicate those exercises every time it's possible. So again, it's about creating that capacity and reinforcing that capacity if it already exists. So the goal of the process is to produce a final list of beneficiaries, but using a methodology that allows us to select those beneficiaries according to adapted criteria. This approach ensures not only the accountability, but also the legitimacy of the process. Next slide, please. And the other tool that we use is the training of the beneficiaries. Indeed, one of the key phases of Solar Cookers International intervention is to ensure that a structured and effective training for the new beneficiaries. While the technology behind solar cooking is pretty simple to use, SCI understands that a period of learning and adaptation is necessary to increase the comprehension for new solar cooks. It is therefore essential to provide proper guidance to the beneficiaries so they can become fully familiar with the tool and use it optimally, especially during the first weeks after being introduced to solar cooking. To support this intervention, SCI usually implements a comprehensive training program structured around 5 core modules covering essential aspects of the solar cooking. So, what do we do every time? We ensure that we conduct a training of the trainers. In fact, the first step every time we want to train those new users is to conduct the training of the trainers because we want to build the capacity on the ground. So the first step in this approach and the training of trainers delivered by SCI to the implementing partners, the strategy is based on the recognition that solid foundation of local expertise in solar cooking already exists. However, the goal is to standardize the key messages and teaching methods to ensure consistent delivery of the information. It is also to strengthen the technical capacities of local partners, enabling them to independently conduct training sessions for end users, and preferably in the local language. It is also to ensure that the quality and consistency of the training content based on SCI official training manual and best practices guidance. Also, at the end of each training of trainer session, a systematic evaluation is carried out to assess both the content of the modules and the training format. These evaluations allow SCI to capture lessons learned and make continuous improvements for the quality of the program. So once we do conduct that training of the trainers, now we invite our implementing partners to themselves conduct the training of the new cooks, so of the beneficiaries of the program. And the second phase, the train local partners take the lead in delivering the training directly to the new beneficiaries. This approach helps to facilitate the skill transfer at the community level. It also helps to promote the local ownership of the solar cooking technology and ensures the continuity of the activities on the field. So, in the next slide, we will also see it's like one of the tools that we use, which is the adoption and impact survey. So the objective of the adoption and the impact survey is to assess the adoption and impact of solar cookers through a standardized evidence-based survey, enabling data-driven decision-making and improved program outcomes. The adoption and impact survey is a key component of the monitoring and evaluation framework implemented by Solar Cookers International. It aims to standardize data collection related to solar cooker usage and measure the effects of beneficiary households while also strengthening the technical capacity of local partners to conduct evidence-based research. The survey is conducted in 2 phases. First, we have the baseline, which is the data collection phase before distribution of any of the solar cookers. And this is to establish an initial household profile. And we have a second phase, which is a post-distribution phase that helps us measure the adoption rate, the cooking practices, the reduction in traditional fuel use, and the impacts on health, environment, and household economy. In line with SCI's commitment to institutional capacity building, the survey questionnaire is systematically reviewed and adapted in close collaboration with key partners. This ensures that the tool is relevant to local socioeconomic realities while also promoting ownership by the field actors. SCIs provide structured technical support throughout the process by organizing training of enumerators with a strong focus on capacity transfer to local partners, but also by using user-friendly and replicable tools, which enable partners to independently reuse these tools in the future and any future project. And finally, that technical support is also provided by supporting participatory data analysis, ensuring that findings are actionable and serve as evidence for decision making. The post-distribution survey is usually conducted several months after distribution of solar cookers and follows the same methodological approach and places even greater emphasis on developing partners' analytical skills, enabling them to interpret data and identify areas for improvement. The goal of this approach, when we're talking about that second part of the survey, which is the impact survey, is to build comparable pre and post intervention data sets, allowing for an objective assessment of the project outcomes, but also allowing for consolidation of best practices. And finally, to inform adjustments for future interventions, all based on clear, validated, and shared indicators. So this is a quick presentation of the main tools that SCI uses on the field once we have implemented a project with a partner. And
Great. Thank you so much, Stefan.
thank you.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much for showing us what best practices look like in action. We have sort of zoomed out to see a big picture and zoomed in to see some practical examples. And I'd like to talk a little bit about insights and tools, because we need insight into countries' shifting needs, where the gaps are, and emerging opportunities. And we need to ensure that up-to-date resources are ready when opportunities arise. So at this time of year, one of the most valuable insights we can draw from comes from the voluntary national reviews being presented at HLPF. Alan's already mentioned it a little, but I'd like to take a slightly deeper dive. And for those that are less familiar, VNRs are essentially progress reports on how countries are advancing the Sustainable Development Goals. They're submitted voluntarily and provide an opportunity for countries to share progress, challenges, and priorities as they work towards the 2030 agenda. This year, 37 countries are presenting, and because these reviews are country-led, they reflect each nation's unique context. And importantly, they are not created in isolation. So countries often engage in a wide range of voices: government agencies, civil societies, private sector, academia, and even youth groups. They all contribute to these reviews. On this slide, you will see how these VNRs connect to one of SCI's key metrics, which is the portion of a country's population that relies on polluting fuels for cooking. So all 37 countries are shown here, but the larger the country name, the larger the percentage of their population that uses wood and other polluting fuels. For example, Kazakhstan, about 7% of the population relies on polluting fuels. In Ghana, that number is 69%. And in countries like Ethiopia and Gambia, it is over 90%, according to the World Health Organization. So every year, SCI reviews all presenting VNRs, and our goal is to identify existing clean cooking initiatives, as well as any language that indicates an openness to potential solar cooking projects. It can take various forms. They might mention current clean cooking investments or acknowledge problems caused by polluting fuels, or a focus on related themes. We take this broad approach because solar cooking serves as a very versatile cross-cutting solution. For instance, one nation might prioritize forest preservation, another focuses on respiratory disease, and both can benefit from solar cooking. This year, we were able to analyze 35 of the presenting VNRs, and of these, slightly more than half, or 18 countries, specifically mention clean cooking sector as an area of concern or potential development. And we see this as really good news for the clean cooking sector, and an indication that more and more people are understanding its significance. Of course, many VNRs do not specifically mention cooking, but every single one raises an issue that is addressed by clean cooking. And these vary from disaster preparedness to reaching rural communities using off-grid solutions. So here on the right there, you're going to see some of the most common and most relevant themes that are raised, and how many of the VNRs identify these as priorities. I'd like to highlight a few countries: Bhutan, Ethiopia, India, Ghana, Gambia, Kyrgyzstan, Gambia, and Papua New Guinea. because their VNRs showcase either current and ongoing investment in clean cooking initiatives. Ghana, for example, cites that 40% of their Article 6 interventions are clean cooking projects. Or the VNR identifies clean cooking as a priority moving forward. So Papua New Guinea, for example, outlines strategies for local governments to help vulnerable communities gain access to clean cooking technologies. VNRs help us understand country priorities, but that's not the whole picture. There is already so much solar cooking happening around the world, more than you might think. So at SCI, we track the number and distribution of solar cookers globally and maintain a dynamic map that visualizes where they're being used. So far, we have identified over 4 million cookers worldwide. So this information helps us understand where solar cooking is already taking hold and where there's potential for greater impact. It's a valuable tool for project leaders, showing where awareness is strong or where more outreach could make a difference. This map's available on our website, and it is crowdsourced. So I encourage everyone to contribute. You can visit the website and complete a form, and your cookers will appear on the map. A quick note, the mapping software is currently being upgraded, so it might take a minute for your cookers to appear, but the new and improved version is coming very soon. And of course, the number of solar cookers can be translated into the number of families directly affected, meals cooked, and the amount of money saved through avoided fuel costs. SCI has taken this understanding and applied it to the country level through a tool we call economic impact summaries, which ultimately tries to answer the question, how much could a country save in avoided healthcare and environmental costs by switching to solar cooking? It's important to note that we do not assume that the entire population will cook with solar 100% of the time. We model a scenario where the portion of a population that is currently using polluting fuels switches for just 25% of their meals. This conservative estimate accounts for things like cloudy days. This approach highlights how solar cooking can complement existing methods rather than replacing them. And even at this modest adoption level, the potential savings in fuel and healthcare are huge. So our tool includes both a chart listing all the countries together, as well as individual country sheets. So Keith's already highlighted some of our findings related to Mali and Central African Republic. And here you can see another example from Burundi. In a moment, we'll be hearing from a group that's working in Burundi. Over 99% of the population there uses polluting fuels, which create smoke and contribute to 7,626 deaths annually. And by switching to solar just a quarter of the time, the country stands to save over $207 million US dollars in avoided costs. You can find your country's estimated impact summary on the SCI website under download resources. You will find other insights. And of course, understanding the landscape's just one step. So to help you take action, we also offer tools that support learning and implementation. And to really take a deep dive, you're going to want to visit the Solar Cooking Wiki, which is the world's largest online platform for solar cooking resources. The wiki is hosted and managed by SCI, but depends on people from around the world sharing their experiences and their expertise. It is a treasure trove of information with almost 1,800 pages. You can find a huge variety of information from including news, events, learning materials, vendors, manufacturers, and open source designs so you can make your own cooker. And one of the most helpful features is that every country has its own page so you can really zero in on what's happening in your region. And the knowledge sharing that takes place on the wiki really helps make solar cooking accessible, and it also serves as a virtual community and networking mechanism. Speaking of learning, I'm very excited to introduce our next speakers who have been using education to combat deforestation. So they're working on a capacity building project in Burundi, established a vocational training model which teaches people how to make and use cookers adapted to the local context. Elena Castrillo from Spain has a rich background in vocational training and coordinating gender equality and human rights initiatives. She now works with IES La Merced and Erasmus Plus. Dr. Yudone Rukundo, originally from Burundi, is the CEO and founder of Narudi, connecting farmers and consumers through a digital platform. They are key players in the vocational and educational training to stop deforestation project and here to talk about their work. They've provided us with a video, but they are joining us here live today as well. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A section.
Thanks to the organizers of Solar Cookers International for inviting us to participate in this panel to present VET to Stop Deforestation project.
VET to Stop Deforestation is a capacity building in the field of vocational educational training project co-funded by the European Union in the frame of Erasmus program. The objective of this kind of projects is try to help to improve the vocational educational training in countries not associated to the Erasmus program. In our case, we are focused in Burundi, in Africa.
Burundi is a little country in the heart of Africa with a high population density of over 400 inhabitants per square kilometer. Approximately 98% of Burundi's population uses charcoal or firewood for cooking, which is one of the main causes of the country's serious deforestation problem. As is well known, deforestation leads to serious environmental problems such as the loss of biodiversity, desertification, and climate change. In Burundi's case, deforestation also means that Lake Tanganyika grows every year due to soil washed away by torrential rains, and that many families lose their homes every year because they are flooded into the lake. But not only that, the loss of forest cover also means a shortage of firewood and charcoal, and the Burundian population is threatened with not being able to cook, not to mention having trouble boiling water or milk to pasteurize them.
The goal of VET to Stop Deforestation is to design a vocational training program on solar cooker manufacturing, tailored to Burundi's educational system and with the aim of providing Burundi with workers capable of supplying the local market with locally manufactured solar cookers.
The goal of our project is to introduce sustainability into vocational training, preparing students for the energy and ecological transition.
We want to also highlight the change in the approach to vocational training, as we are working in a project to train people to address, through their work, local issues of ecological and social sustainability. In this way, our project proposes not to use vocational training simply to increase the country's productivity, but to promote a social economy focused on people and the preservation of the environment and life.
The idea of our project has been very well received in Burundi by students, teachers, and authorities alike due to the serious problem they are facing with cooking fuel. It's worth noting that research into alternatives to using firewood and charcoal is one of the country's priorities agenda.
Regarding the use of solar cooker, At first, people were somewhat skeptical, but when they tried them and found out they could cook beans and fry potatoes, they became very enthusiastic, especially the women, who are the ones who suffer the most for having to cook with charcoal and firewood. As they told us, so a cooker can help them to save a lot of time looking for firewood. One of the teachers taking part in the project teach cooking classes, and this year she taught her classes using solar cooker, saving her school a lot of money on charcoal. But from our point of view, this is very important that she is experimenting cooking with sand to make typical Burundian dishes and also teaching future culinary professionals how to cook with the sand.
To manufacture solar cookers in Burundi, our project required new designs using only locally available materials. We used the traditional building materials to create more affordable and easy to manufacture cookers without relying on specific imported materials such as reflective aluminium. We cannot provide an exact market price for solar cooker manufactured entirely in Burundi, but we estimate it will be equivalent to approximately half of a year's worth of charcoal. In any case, in Burundi, even in the cities, people use small clay pots with charcoal or even 3 stones and firewood to cook. So, obviously, a solar cooker, no matter how cheap, comes at high price.
Given the inconvenience of the expense of purchasing a solar cooker for people with limited financial resource, our proposal is to use solar cooker for small businesses, not just for cooking at home. Since the sun's energy is free all day long and domestic use only takes 2 or 3 hours. We have a wonderful experience with Agatha, a student from Burundi. We met her in a dissemination event in Gitega, the capital of Burundi, where we were holding a workshop on solar cooker made from recycled cardboard and aluminum foil. Agatha built her cardboard solar cooker with us and learned how to use it with great enthusiasm because she told us she didn't have enough money to buy charcoal for cooking. Shortly later, Agatha sent me a WhatsApp telling me she was using her solar cooker to make spiced potatoes and selling at the market. And several months later, she told me she had raised enough money with her little solar restaurant to pay for her university fees.
Currently, a team of Burundian teachers are studying other types of business, such as roasting peanuts or, for example, making panela. Sugar is scarce and very expensive in Burundi, but there is plenty of sugarcane. Using a hand tool, the teachers are making sugarcane juice and using solar cooker to boil it into panela. Regarding the Sustainable Development Goals being discussed in this forum, we have seen that solar cookers improve the health of people in Burundi by allowing them to eat well-cooked food, purify water, and pasteurize milk, all without women and their babies inhaling fumes. The use of solar cookers can free many women and children from the arduous and sometimes dangerous task of collecting firewood, which also allows them time for other activities that improve their quality of life. In the case of the youngest children studying. As we have seen, the production of solar cookers by technicians in Burundi could boost the local economy by creating jobs while offering a local and ecological solution for the problem of fuel shortages with a social economy model that also does not generate technological dependence on foreign sources. Furthermore, the use of solar cookers can provide a source of income for women through small business compatible with their lifestyle. Although it is not one of the SDGs being discussed here today, and given its importance, I would like to finally emphasize that solar cookers can help fighting hunger in my country.
Finally, we would like to make a brief reflection because although the use of solar cookers can help to stop the felling of trees and partially solve the problem of cooking in Burundi, solving the problem of deforestation, which is not unique to Burundi but to the entire planet in all the countries, requires a large economy investment and agreements and high-level political commitment on a planetary scale. However, we think that high-level institutions such as the High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development should also pay attention and not forget the small local initiatives of social economy. And of course, try to promote the approach to educational training to serve to train people as real agents capable of solving the problems on their communities and not as a labor force exclusively to increase productivity.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to our guest speakers. We are so honored to be able to bring these important voices together from literally all around the world. And we have audience members from all around the world as well. So a big thank you to our guest speakers for sharing their expertise, because we believe that's really important. I'm Caitlin Hughes. I'm the Executive Director of Solar Cookers International, and we'll just be wrapping up with a few closing thoughts about how to engage with Solar Cookers International. So we've gotten lots of questions about that. So there are tons of free resources available at solarcookers.org and solarcooking.org, which, for example, Sarah Rosen shared many of those earlier in the presentation, and we encourage you to look at those. Further, SCI also offers consultancy services, and that can be more in-depth guidance on shaping a particular project, but there's a lot of time that can go along with that as well. Next slide, please. So what can you do? How can you support this important work? Because I'm sure after listening to all of these wonderful speakers, you are feeling enthusiastic and inspired and informed. What do we do next? First of all, I'd just like to make a very genuine thank you to our supporters, those who donate to support SCI, because we could not do this important work and offer these informative sessions and informative resources without that. So a big thank you to our supporters, and we encourage you to join the movement, make a gift on our website if you are able to, and that can help us share this information with even more people around the world. So thank you for that. We, like I said, encourage you to access SCI's resources and share those with anybody else who you think might be interested as well. Include solar cooking in your life, your work, and or your country's policies. As Alan shared, many of us are solar cooks as well, and we see how it intersects with so many important things that we care about and that we do. Please let others know, encourage them to sign up for more information so that they can hear about future events, information, opportunities as well. And another way, on the next slide, that you can share information and help build the movement is through connecting with SCI on social media. As you can see, we're on a bunch of different platforms. So please like, share, follow, subscribe, comment, and also share with other folks who you think might be interested, as this helps us share this important information, as you've seen the value in that, with even more people around the world. We are very thankful we've been able to answer a lot of questions in the Q&A throughout the presentation. So definitely thank you so much. And please do look at our resources for more information to any other questions that you have. Thank you again so much to our guest speakers for sharing their time and their perspectives. Thank you, audience members, for joining us and sharing your time. Please do share this recording once it comes out with anybody else who you think would be interested. And thank you for joining the Solar Cooking Movement. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care. Thanks. Bye.